Sometimes as our well-intentioned parenting, we think we're doing this awesome thing for our kids. It actually might have some negative repercussions into adulthood. I'm Renee Seltzer, founder of Feeding My Kid, and in today's episode, I want to talk about food rewards. We don't want to tie food with emotions because that's later kids start to eat their feelings and adults start to eat their feelings. There's a lot of times when you feel sad. I want you to reflect on your own relationship with food. When you get sad, do you kind of eat your feelings? When you get happy, do you want to celebrate with a piece of cake or with a candy bar? Do you kind of feel like you deserve it? Well, what happens is we unintentionally connect food and reward with emotions. And food should not be tied to emotions, right? That causes overeating, that causes weight issues, that just really causes an unhealthy relationship with food. So you're thinking, well, that sounds like a bunch of baloney, right? My parents did it to me, I'm going to do it to my kids, it works out really well for us. Well, let's talk about that. Do you really have a healthy relationship with food? Are you the ideal weight? Are you, how is your BMI? How is your relationship with food? Do you kind of struggle with trying to lose weight? Or if you're a thin person, are you always thinking about food or not letting yourself indulge in that food? Because if you're spending a lot of your mental capacity thinking about food, I would actually tell you probably don't have a great relationship with food. And that's something we want to avoid with our kids. We don't always want to pass down some of our own struggles to our children. So if we're overweight, we definitely don't want our kids to be overweight because we know how hard it is. And sometimes that's what happens. We end up passing our relationship and weight issues onto our kids unintentionally. And then sometimes we think, well, I grew up just fine and I'm fine. But I want you to be really self-reflective. Are you fine? And this isn't a judgment, but you're not going to be able to change if you don't really address the fact that you might have a bad relationship with food also. As a part of this exercise, I want you to think about your relationship with food. Do you eat your feelings? Do you eat everything off your plate even though you're full? Do you feel like you need to reward yourself? Or do you really deny yourself all kinds of foods because you're worried if you indulge, you'll eat the whole carton of ice cream and you don't really have that self-control to just eat a little bit? That actually is your relationship with food, and we don't want to necessarily pass that on to our kids. That should kind of stay with you. So what do we do instead? If we don't use food as a reward, so what is food as a reward? If you give your kids like some M&Ms for going to the bathroom, or their first day of school, you want to reward them for go out for ice cream with them, or you have a chore chart and they're doing really well on their chore chart, so you give them some cookies or candy, that's all a reward. And what you want to do, so now you're thinking, well, what do I do instead? Are you thinking that? So what do I do instead, right? So if you don't use food as a reward, you could use park time, you could use individual parent time, you can go to a movie, maybe you can get them a new toy. So what we're trying to say is you still use the reward, but we take food off the table, and food is no longer a reward system. I know, my son personally would light up when, occasionally he gets a cupcake, and the happiness on his face is just, it's amazing, right? So, there's parts of me that wants to keep replicating that. I want to make the kid so happy. I love to see it on his face. But then I have to think, is that really the best thing for his long-term health, right? And it isn't. So we get cupcakes seldomly. And we don't really, we tie it to birthdays. And sometimes we just get a cupcake just to get a cupcake. So I really want to make sure that we're not just getting cupcakes or sweets on a special occasion. Because again, that unintentionally ties emotion, happiness with a special event and food. So that's something to think about too. Like if you think about Valentine's Day, I show love with candy and chocolates. Well, maybe on Valentine's Day we show love with crafts and like little fun activities of shared time, because it's really about love and spending quality time together. It doesn't need to be about chocolate or candy or anything, because what we're doing is unintentionally tying all of these sweets with holidays, with rewards, with the dessert deal, and I have videos on that, which means if you eat this if you eat 2 more pieces of green beans, you could have a cupcake or a cookie or an Oreo. We're again tying reward with food, and we don't want to do that. So really, really make an effort to avoid any tie with emotions with food. As with anything, this is not a all or nothing. It's progress, not perfection. So if you have a couple bad days, don't worry about it, because it's ultimately, if you're just being present and you're thinking about it and you're working hard towards the goal of trying not to tie food with reward, then you're killing it and you're doing awesome and great job. So I really want you to think about not beating yourself up. No part of this series ever says this is easy and it's all or nothing, and if you can't do it, you're out. This is just getting you to think about it in a different way and let you know that there are unintended consequences with some of this stuff, and hopefully the next generation of kids can be healthier than our generation. Share your comments, share your thoughts below. I really want to get the conversation going. I want you to come up with creative ways to go ahead and reward your kids that has nothing to do with food, and really get you to start thinking about food, separating food and emotions, and reward and food. And take them to the park, take them to a movie, and just spend quality time with your kids. All right, well, thanks so much for your time today. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Find us on Pinterest and Facebook. We're everywhere. And we really ultimately want to make this an easier journey for you as parents and hopefully create lifelong healthy eaters. Bye.